to order this meeting of the City of Columbus Plan Commission for Thursday, May 17th, 2018. Matt, whenever you're ready, would you please take a roll call?
Monday,
Present.
Parpart,
Present.
Tome,
Present.
Zapataki,
Present.
Tylen.
Present.
We have a quorum. And Hanson and Robbins are excused.
Thank you. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. Next item then is to approve the agenda. Unless there's any alterations or deletions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. We have citizen comments on the agenda. Is there any citizen present tonight that wish to make a comment? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. We have a copy of the minutes in the packet. These would be from Monday, April 30th. Take a second to review them, otherwise I'll take a motion to approve the minutes unless there's any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 30th, 2018.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes from April 30th, 2018. Any discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Thank you. No unfinished business tonight, so on to new business then. Item A is going to be a public hearing, the request of Delwood and Linda Madsen for a zoning map amendment from R2 to R3 at 538 Spring Street. If no one is opposed, I'll open up the public hearing at this time.
Just one comment, shouldn't that be North Spring Street instead of just Spring Street, because you got north and south?
You're right, it is North Spring
Good
Street.
point. 538 North Spring Street. Thanks, Bob. All right, the public hearing is open.
Do you want me to give a little staff
Yep.
report on this? Okay.
A review?
So I've met with the applicant and then also his realtor, and they want to do a CSM to split the lot. It's a double lot. It's 60 feet wide. The one issue is, and I say in the staff report, when you look per our subdivision ordinance, which also guides our CSMs, we cannot divide any land that creates would create non-conforming lots. And right now the property is zoned R2, which is minimum 75-foot lot width. So if we took the 120-foot lot and divided by 2, it's two 60-foot lots. So we'd be creating two non-conforming lots. So I've worked with him and Ms. Long, his realtor, and really the only way to do it is to do a rezone, then do a CSM. It's by code, that's the only way we could approve the CSM. So this is the first phase of the approval process. I don't see any issue with reclassifying it to R2 to R3. This part of town, it's, it kind of, as you go north on 73, you take a left kind of by Mullins, it's back in there. Most of the lots in there are 50 to 60 feet wide. Why it's zoned R2 right now, I guess, is probably because it is a double lot, but the zoning in that neighborhood is probably more consistent with the R3 zoning. And the R3 typically is in the near downtown area where it's the older homes on the 50 to 60 foot lots. So, and it is consistent with our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan shows that neighborhood is residential. So, I as staff, I didn't see any issue with rezoning it from R2 to R3. So.
On the memo that you have on the bottom, the adjacent land, that's all currently zoned R2 as well, you said?
Yeah.
So it's not just that property, it's the entire neighborhood that's
Correct.
zoned R2?
So I mean, and it kind of almost goes back to the issue we had with the single-family home that was zoned business. We also have a potential issue with a lot of non-conforming lots in the city with things not meeting the zoning requirements. Non-conforming lots aren't as big of an issue as the non-conforming structure. or non-conforming use in the case of that rezoning that we had at the last meeting, but it's still something the city needs to explore and make sure that we don't have issues like this in the future. So,
Questions? Bob? Turn your mic on. There you go.
Maybe, I'm not quite clear on something here. If we move it to R3 down the road, if the use that they're proposing changes from garden that they're talking about on this property to possible a structure going up in there, we still will be conforming with all the regulations, rules, so on and so forth?
yeah, I mean, they would have to conform with what's the R3 zoning district. And the one thing that I would note is that the lot that would be split and sold off for garden purposes, it would be buildable. The one issue is it is in the flood fringe, so we would have to make sure we follow the proper procedures when we do that. I know Uriah is well aware of that, but we'd have to bring the fill in to make sure. But there's nothing that would prevent anybody from building on that lot if down the road somebody wanted to put a house there. So,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
Uriah?
Am I on?
Yep, you're
I am
good.
now. Great, all right. It looks like perhaps this is just reverting back to the original platted areas.
Probably.
Pretty
Most
close?
most
Okay.
of the original plats have 60-foot widths.
Is
So-
there enough room on that, I'll call it the right side lot line, for the building setback? I know that's often something that gets looked at when a parcel is divided off from something that's got an existing structure. In other words, I'd hate to go through this rezone and then find out that where they wanted to put the line, or I guess it's probably more pertinent on the left side where they don't have the opportunity to adjust where the line is. Is that still gonna meet the setback requirement?
I believe it will. It is 10% of the lot width in there, so it'll end up being 6 feet on either side. And granted, the aerial here, there's a margin of error, but from what I've seen, I think there will be 6 feet, so.
Okay, would that fall under the can't divide into a non-conforming use?
No, because the use would be conforming with residential.
All right, okay.
So it would-
And I
it
realize
would-
I'm thinking ahead here to the land division itself, not the rezone, but I guess sort of from the same point that Bob was saying, right? The purported purpose of the vacant lot is to use it for garden purposes, but there's nothing that says you couldn't build a building on it. So I guess just from a, sort of getting all the facts out in the open.
Well, it would be zoned R3. Both lots would be zoned
Right.
R3 when they're split. So, I mean, just because the person who will be purchasing the property is going to be using it for a garden, as I said, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, theoretically, that still could be, that's still a buildable lot, provided they bring the fill in and meet the requirements for FEMA.
Right, yeah, and I don't care about that. It's just in the application said, oh, we're gonna put a garden. I guess it just needs to be out in the open.
Correct. That
It
will-
could be buildable.
Yeah, that will be the, I guess, the intended use for the time being. But that's still permitted underneath the residential zoning district. So there shouldn't be an issue with the zoning.
Go ahead, Bob.
Agreeing with your comment about fill for FEMA, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a clause in there that if you are adding fill to a certain place, that it could make it worse in another adjacent place and it can't be done?
Flood fringe, it's okay,
It is okay in flood free, okay,
by definition.
okay.
The other thing I would say is that as these projects are going through the approval process, Jason Letha and our other engineers and staff would be looking at that and making sure that the grading plan that they would have for it, and then also the erosion control around the site. They'd have the silt fence up when they're building the home and things like that. So there would be measures that would be taken to make sure that it wouldn't impact the, surrounding neighbors.
Yeah, because the lot next to the right of the one we're talking about, right next to the baseball diamond there, under heavy rain conditions, does accumulate quite a bit of water. I think Connie and Delwood both could attest to that. And they quite often are very close to having a serious problem. So that's just trying to look out for them.
Any other questions? All right, well, the public hearing is still open. I know that Delwood is here, so I don't know if you wanted to say anything or not. You've heard the questions that we're asking, but,
No,
okay.
the only thing is, when I bought the property,
If you are going to speak, I would ask you that you come up to the podium, just so you can be heard for anyone that's watching the meeting. Thank you, Delwood.
the only thing is, when I bought the property, they told me, my double lot, the extra lot, it was not buildable because there was a big sewer line that ran under, through there.
Okay.
But otherwise, I've had no problem with water at all outside in 2008 when we had that flood. The garden was flooded, but I didn't get any water in my house.
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
I think we're all good. Bob, one question?
Yeah, not necessarily, well, maybe Delwood would answer it, otherwise turn it over to Matt for staff. Is that sewer line that he was talking about still in existence at that point, or is that further down the baseball diamond type area?
No, it goes right through my lot.
Well, if that's the case, it would never be a buildable lot.
No, that's what they told me, it would never be a buildable lot.
I mean, so theoretically, what we're looking at is from now till forever, you can have a garden,
Yeah.
okay?
Or someone will find out in 50 years that there's a sewer line under
There
the...
was like a barn down there.
Okay.
I mean, could you build on top of it, like if you
You
didn't?
got an
No?
easements that are in there, so they've got the right of way to get into, fix it if something goes haywire.
And I would just add, I guess I wasn't aware of the easement, but when the CSM would be recorded, typically when the surveyor goes through, easements on properties are always recorded at, or are usually shown on CSM. So the surveyor would pick up on that when the CSM is developed.
There's a manhole at the end of my lot on the other end.
Okay. All right, unless there are further questions, I need to legally ask 3 times if there's anyone here to speak at this public hearing. We did hear from Delwood. I'll count that as the first call, and call again for a second time if there's anyone present that wishes to speak at this public hearing for a zoning map amendment. And again, for a third and final time, if there's anyone present that wishes to speak at this public hearing. Seeing no one present to speak, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll move on to item B, which is deliberate and make recommendation to the City Council on the request of Delwood and Linda Madsen for a zoning map amendment from R2 to R3 at 538 North Spring Street. Any further questions from the commission or desire to form a motion?
I'll move to recommend approval to change the subject property from R2 to R3.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to make a recommendation to the council to approve the request of Delwood and Linda Madsen for a zoning map amendment from R2 to R3 at 538 North Spring Street. Any discussion on the motion? Should we take a roll call on that?
Monday,
Yes.
Parpart,
Yes.
Tome,
Aye.
Tylen,
Aye.
Zepataki.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion passes. All right, that recommendation, I believe, is going to be moving to our next
Council.
agenda next
Yeah.
Tuesday?
No,
No? No?
it's gonna go to the 5th.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm off tomorrow, and the packets, I think, are already pretty much done, so.
Yeah, okay.
it's the time to get it on. Unfortunately, just the timing didn't work, so.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to item C. Consider recommendation to the Common Council on the certified survey map of parcel number 122.117 at 501 Vista Circle. Yes. Jason is going to be abstaining from conversation.
Sure, I'll just walk you through this one. We have a CSM application to combine parcel 122.130 and 122.17, or actually it's 117, excuse me, into one parcel. The applicant at 501 Vista Circle is essentially going to be combining the lots into one lot, and they are going to be moving forward with an addition to their house. Obviously, you know, with the lot line, you can't build over the lot line with the setback requirement, so the CSM is needed to essentially eliminate the lot line and allow for the addition to their house. So it's a fairly straightforward lot line removal. Staff has reviewed it. I don't have any issues with the proposed CSM as it's presented. It is obviously in a residential neighborhood, so everything's fairly consistent with the neighborhood, and other than that, I'll take any questions.
The only thing I had on that was, it looks like that lot line that would be extended towards the neighbor, that lot line is awfully close there. That has to be under, I think it should be 16 feet or something like that out there.
I guess I don't know what you mean by extended, because it's, I mean, it's.
Well, they're gonna be, basically, the ownership of that lot stays neutral then, that it can be buildable?
Correct. It's owned by Jason Tylen.
They're
And
gonna
both-
buy it.
Both lots are owned by the same person, so they're
Right.
just combining the lots into one. So they're not, I guess that's why I don't understand what you mean by extending the lot lines, because they're not,
Okay.
it's not changing the lots, it's just taking the two lots and
It's
making it
not
one.
changing that, but it looks to me like that lot line that exists already on that second lot is awfully darn close to that other house.
Are you looking at the aerial?
The aerial map.
Yeah, I would, though the yellow line isn't spot on,
It's not-
100% exact, so there's a margin of error there, so that's probably what you're seeing.
Okay.
Being that this is a subdivision that was relatively platted, or recently platted, you
Platted,
know,
yes, yes. Well, that
I,
was
you know,
my-
the
My
setbacks.
question of what, you know, just to make sure that we're
No, I,
staying clean.
no, yeah, I can't imagine it's,
Well, I would
It's-
hope it wouldn't be,
yeah, okay.
but I've seen, for personal experience, things like that happen.
Yeah. No, I'm fairly confident that that's not gonna be encroaching on the neighbor,
Okay.
so. Actually, I shouldn't say fairly confident, I'm confident it's not, I mean, it's
The
a
present neighbor
recent
anyway.
subdivision, so,
Thank you.
yep.
Any other questions? I have none. Seems pretty straightforward to me. I guess it's not changing the outside of the lots they own. They're just removing that line in the middle to build onto their house, so. And this would just be the first step of combining that. If they're building, there's gonna be permit process, and that's when setbacks and things will be dealt with.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
All right. Unless there's any questions, I'll entertain any motions from the commission. Ed, did you have another question or not?
No.
Bob?
So move that we approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend to the common council the certified survey map of parcel number 122.117 be approved for 501 Vista Circle. Any discussion on that? If none, could we please take a roll call, Matt?
Sure. Monday,
Yes.
Parpart,
Yes.
Tone,
Aye.
Zapataki.
Yes.
And Tylen's abstaining.
Abstained.
Yeah,
Thank you.
4-0.
All right, Jason, you're free to come back up now. Punch back in. All right, we'll move on to item D then, which is consider recommendation to the common council on the certified survey map of parcel numbers 894 and 895 at 131 and 151 Harrell Street.
All right, this application came to me from the county. The county is making a lot line adjustment with their neighbor, Bob, who owns Bob's Beverage, Bob Wiehart. It's fairly straightforward. If you look at the CSM, there's a dash line going through where the lot line used to be. Essentially, the lot line's going from a 45-degree angle more to a, I don't know, I guess more level. So it's basically making an adjustment to the lot line. I guess the county has had stored some stuff on Bob's land for years, and Bob is in the process of selling his property, and they finally decided to make it official before he sold it, so there wouldn't be any issues. So it's, as I said, this is a lot line adjustment for these two. It's fairly, I guess, simple in my opinion, and I don't see any issue with the proposed CSM. Yep.
I don't want to be a procedural stick in the mud, but these have two different zonings. Don't zoning lines follow existing boundary lines? They're gonna have to do a follow-up rezone?
I would say no, because it doesn't change the parcel number at all. I mean, the parcels are gonna stay the same. So, I mean, correct, the zoning is gonna change, but the zoning is gonna be to the parcel.
So the zoning is going to follow the,
Correct.
I know, and like I said, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, from a boundary line standpoint. I've had the experience though that zoning can follow non-boundary lines. You
No.
can have a big tract of land that part of it's zoned one thing and part of it's zoned a different. And that's the thing that sort of muddles stuff up. So I'd rather talk about it now and point it out than have them have an issue later.
I didn't see anything in the code that would be an issue. I did know that there were two separate zonings, but as I said, I did not see anything in the code that presented a challenge when adjusting the proper or the parcel line here. So
We got B2 highway commercial and then
it's
industrial.
I-1, yeah.
Okay.
And you know, and mainly it's because industrial, the city doesn't have an institutional zoning, even though it's technically a publicly owned with the county highway workshop back there. So I'm not really sure why it's industrial. I mean, it's a industrial type use, but I mean, to me, institutional makes sense. But since the city doesn't have institutional zoning, that's why it's industrial.
Okay, I was gonna kind of and how that fell in with our plan, but you kind of just answered it, so.
And in a lot of cases, our future land use plan shows especially in the already developed areas, it shows whatever is the existing land use is the future land use. I did look at the future land use map for this, but I can't remember for the life of me what it technically is. I know along 1660 there on James, it shows commercial industrial uses mixed throughout there. So I'm not worried about what it's zoned.
Go ahead, Bob, sorry.
Your aerial, and then again, you're probably gonna say that the lines aren't quite exactly where they are, but it looks like the way that's listed here, it cuts off part of the county shop.
Yeah.
It does. There's exact measurements called out on this map, so you don't have to rely on the aerial.
Well, the CSM, this dash line here is where the lot line is. So you can see on the CSM that,
It varies one way here and another way there.
correct, but
At
you,
each end.
but you can see where the existing structure is and where the existing lot line is, and it doesn't cross that corner of the building. The one thing I would add, though, is the way they're adjusting the lot line. That aerial would look a lot better, because it would essentially be smoothing it out, where it would be lower and then higher on this end, so it wouldn't look like it crosses the building on the GIS.
Okay.
But as I said, the survey shows.
Yeah, I seen where the dash line wasn't where the new proposed one is, it was just, seen the other one too, and it was just kinda okay.
So is this all that will need to be done by the plan commission then? Or there's no further steps beyond this than just to approve this?
Well, the council would have to approve
Recommend
the
that to the
CSM.
council, okay.
Yeah, so this is a recommendation. All the CSMs are a recommendation to the council. Actually, I think everything you guys do is recommendation to council, but don't
Yep.
quote me on that. There might be something I don't know in our code that you guys get final approval on.
I don't have any further questions, you're right.
I'm sorry, this zoning line thing is really bugging me. Well, and I was searching my mind to think of an example. There was a sale to adjacent owner that came through here a few years ago. It was if you're going down Vista Circle toward your place, right at the top of the hill where the cart path crosses, the owners of a couple lots there purchased some additional property to extend their back lot line. I'm quite certain that we had to rezone that small piece before they could purchase and attach to their lots. I'm almost certain that that was the case. The way they did it was sale to adjacent owner by description, rezone, then consolidate the lots by CSM. I know Bob's retiring, and I don't want to mess anything up from a sales standpoint. I guess I'd be of the mind to approve this, but contingent on that issue getting researched before the
Council.
council approves, and offer what I just said as an alternative to the process, because he should be able to complete that sale to adjacent. That way those little stupid sliver pieces would keep their zoning, but the ownership would still change.
To complicate matters, I think they're about the same exact size piece of parcel, so I think there will be a sale,
Perfect.
but I don't think there will be anything.
Oh, right, right, there'd be-
I don't think there will be
Sure.
a dollar amount to it. I think it'll
Right.
just be a quick
$1
claim.
and other
I think
valuable
it'll just be like a
consideration.
quick claim deed, and then it will record it, essentially record the sale, but I mean, they're just swapping essentially
Right.
equal parts.
Whatever deed mechanism there is, yes,
Yeah.
I agree. And maybe that's being done, maybe that's gotta be done ahead of time. Maybe they're planning on doing that ahead of time anyway. So, like I keep saying, I realize I may just be hung up on the whole procedural part of this, but that can cause issues. And I want to suggest that alternative measure be something that's put out there for their consideration. If it turns out, consult with staff and consult with Paul.
That's,
All
that,
right.
yeah, I was gonna say, I'll probably ask Paul on this.
Yeah,
just
that's perfect.
Just
I
to
don't-
get his, opinion, because I don't know, I could look in the code and, it still comes down to my interpretation, so I'd feel more comfortable with the city attorney weighing in, so.
Okay. I think that sounds good, just to cover our bases to make sure, and we've got time before this recommendation would come to the council?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll
So-
let you form the
I
motion.
was just gonna say, it sounds like I better tee this one up. All right. I move to recommend to council to approve the CSM as drawn, contingent on finding whether the line between the two parcels needs to be rezoned prior to the land division.
I'll second.
Get that written down, Matt?
Says, contingent on if a rezoning, what was that last one? Is
Now I gotta remember what I said.
needed before CSM is recorded, right?
Correct. That's the flavor of it anyway.
Okay. And just as a procedural note, that technically the council could approve it if they had like a rezoning application in, because the CSM recording does not happen until it's taken to the county and recorded. Just because the city approves it does not mean it's, the CSM's recorded. There's still another step that needs to happen. So just so everybody knows what the procedure is.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the CSM as drawn with the contingency as Uriah stated and Matt has hopefully captured in the minutes. Could you recite that just so we know?
Motion to approve the CSM as shown, contingent on if a rezoning is needed before the CSM is recorded.
Is that appropriate? Okay, sounds good. So we've got a motion and a second. Ed, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Can we take a roll call on that one too, Matt?
Sure. Monday,
I better say yes.
Part,
Yes.
Tome,
Aye.
Tylen,
Aye.
Zapataki.
Aye.
Approved, 5-0.
Thank you.
All right.
Last item then?
Last but not least, we have an application here for another CSM from Dr. Jonathan Overbay and then his neighbors, John and Darlene Marks. Essentially, what we have here is Mr. Overby is, or Dr. Overby is purchasing a 15 by 150-foot swath of land from his neighbors. I believe he has an existing driveway, and I think he's eventually plans extending the driveway to the rear of the building. At this point, I'm not entirely sure the exact layout of the plan, but this was needed to necessitate that. So I've met with both parties. They seem to be satisfied with the process, and at this point, I have no other comments or concerns. Everything will be up the zoning code as far as lot widths, depths, all that kind of fun stuff. So this is just a simple lot line adjustment. And there is an agreement already between the neighbors, so the city really has no additional comment.
Bob?
Is there a setback for the lot line to the distance to the driveway that proposed goes through, would there be enough room then for that?
The setback to pavement is 5 feet in our code.
Okay,
Looks pretty,
straightforward.
well, it looks pretty tight right now, actually.
Right,
So it looks like
that's
he's probably gonna help solve that problem if he's gonna add or widen the driveway or try to get it behind the building there. I guess my only question is, I'm not too concerned about it, is we're changing one lot, and I guess from a zoning perspective, I don't understand a whole lot about that, but what, to me, it seems like you're kind of taking one lot and then changing the shape of it. Are there any things to be cautious about how you're affecting the neighborhood for the future, I guess, that you don't have a perfectly square lot anymore, you've got this weird kind of shape to it, by adding, as you said, 15 feet by
150.
100 feet.
But from the street, you really wouldn't notice the difference. Really, where you notice the difference is when you get to the rear of their properties, and then it juts back in 15 feet. And this is an older part of town, so how do I put this down? I think in the older parts of towns, you'll see more unique lot shapes than you will in the
Okay.
newer subdivisions that are platted, that every single lot is almost identical. So
I see now the difference between lot one and lot two. Lot one is much larger,
correct.
so that, it's not consistent anyway. Not a concern, just a question, I
No,
guess.
no, yeah, it was just, yeah.
And then, okay. Forget it, I answered my own question. Put my glasses on. Ed?
According to the way it looks, it's not perpendicular to the street anyway, so the buildings aren't squared to the lots anyway, so aesthetics wouldn't be hurt one way or the other,
Okay.
with the situation being like adding 15 feet onto one side.
Bob?
Anything that should have been shown on here for easements that we're not seeing, or does everything go straight out to the Fuller Street for water, electric, sewer, so on and so forth? Some of these properties historically have been known to have things in the back lot lines.
When I spoke with the surveyor on this, they said all the easements were shown, so apparently there hasn't been, I mean, when you're talking easements running through properties, but, you know, like, it's not gonna show where the sewer lateral connects in, if that's what you're thinking.
Well, yeah, just thinking
It-
back, going back to like what we just went through with Delwood here. He's
Yeah.
got one in his middle of his yard, and just so we don't end up with something here, because there are certain places in town where everything runs in the back lot instead of the front lots.
Not, as I said, in my discussions with the surveyor and both the property owners, that hasn't come up as an issue.
Okay.
And I would add that when you look through what are, we have in our code, I think there's 12 things that need to be shown on a CSM, and that is one of them, showing all easements that affect the property, so, or that run through a property.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any concerns, Uriah? Pass the sniff test?
I burned them all up on my last one.
All right, Ed, any further questions? All right, I'll take any action from the commission then.
I so move to approve the request.
Okay?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend to the Common Council the certified survey map of parcel number 1127.02 and 1127.03 at 319 and 335 Fuller Street. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Recommendation is approved. Thank you. Anything else to report, Matt, before we adjourn?
Well, we recently received the grant through the library, and we have a meeting, actually I have a meeting with you next week, and Cindy and Patrick and myself, and one of the things that, for the Plan Commission, for the comprehensive plan, we're gonna collaborate together, and instead of me having some public information meetings and then Cindy going through the same process, kind of asking similar questions, but for different purposes, we're going to be teaming up. So it's kind of delayed a little bit as we've been waiting to hear back on the grant. So that's going to be coming down the pipe here soon. I have worked on a lot of the demographics and started to look at, population projections, looking at similar sized communities, also looking at growth along the 151 corridor over the last, 30 to 40 years, and then the population projection. So I'm going crazy with demographics and all kinds of numbers and starting to put outlines together and starting to develop materials. So the schedule that I gave to this group in January, February, whenever I gave the outline, I think it was in February, is still somewhat on track. And I would also, I guess, just note on a personal level that my wife and I are expecting our second child in October. So that's probably going to push the timeline back into June because I'm going to miss some time. And then when I am in, I'm probably not going to be very thoughtful because
You'll be
you're not
tired.
sleep. Yeah. So, but it's still, progress is being made. And I know we haven't had any updates recently because we've been waiting for the news on the grant. So I just thought I'd let you guys know. As far as the other development news, there's really nothing that I can share. There's a lot of meetings and Patrick and I are busy. Hopefully we'll have some good applications coming forward soon that are a little bit more in depth than some of the CSMs that we've had. Not saying anything wrong with the CSMs. I'm just saying that you guys will probably be tested here in the upcoming months, so it'll be fun.
Great.
So, other than that, nothing really to add. So,
Well, congratulations.
oh, thank you.
You didn't need to take population growth so seriously.
Yeah, well, jeez, no comment.
Go ahead, Bob.
Is Drexel up and running now, or are they just about up and running?
They are open.
are
They had
open.
their grand opening. I want to say it was either that last Monday in April or that first Monday in May. Actually, I've been at their facility. It's quite empty. It's quite large. It's nice on the inside. I mean, they have their office space set up, and there's a bunch of people, and they're working. But they're going to have like their displays. So like, if you want to come in and buy like a new kitchen, you can see. I have all the countertops laid out. But they haven't got all their displays up and running. But they're open.
Okay.
I think it's 8 to 5 every day. So if you want to stop on by, go on.
Going by-
Their entrance is off of Columbus Fall River Road right now. They're going to be using the construction entrance until the end of August, when hopefully Hall Road is completed. Hall Road, I think, is going out to bid. I shouldn't say this because I don't know the exact date, but in the near future. And I know that's in the final process because I know we've recently sent off our signed grant agreement for the T grant to WSDOT. So I know that project will be being let pretty soon, and we'll be receiving bids and pick a contractor and move forward. So
Sounds good, thank you.
All right, unless there's anything further, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned. Next meeting is Thursday, June 20th. Thank you.
we'll probably be stuck with Patrick.